Well, it's that time of year where we start to take a look at the broader picture of the cattle markets. So, Derrell, let's start with box beef.
Box beef, we've been through a lot of dynamics in the last 5 weeks or so since that Tyson plant burned in Kansas. Box beef markets went through a tremendous, bubble of reallocating limited supplies and so on. But that's all through the system now. In the last few days, these prices are back to where they were before. We're seeing the normal seasonal things. We're kind of past the bulk of grilling season, so the middle meats are actually a little bit lower seasonally compared to where they were back in the summer. That's typical, and the end meats start to take on, the chucks and the rounds. We get into more, roast, crock pot kind of season, and we see those markets pick up just a little bit.
You mentioned the fire at the packing plant. Are fed cattle markets seeing any impact at all?
They are still seeing, in fact, that's probably the biggest place we're still seeing impacts. That fire, took down enough capacity in the industry that we're operating very near full capacity. So there's a lot of contortion still going on in the fed cattle market. Some of these cattle are having to be shipped several hundred miles extra to get them to some place to get them slaughtered and so on. We've seen some weakness in those fed cattle prices. We've been maintaining slaughter rates, which is good. We're not getting backed up, but it's not easy. And so there's still some struggles there. It's going to be a few more weeks before we work through that. And there is one risk going forward, and that is that we're really pushing labor in the remaining industry pretty hard with a lot of large Saturday kills, those kind of things to make up for the lost capacity. That may not be possible to maintain or sustain that for many weeks. So we could still see some lingering issues here as we go forward in the next few weeks.
How about feeder cattle?
Feeder cattle markets, of course, are really looking at a number of things. They were initially shocked by the fire. I think most of that's really out of those markets, but feeder markets have been kind of on the defensive. They're watching feed markets. We still have some uncertainty about the corn crop. The market in general is just pretty nervous right now. Futures have been fairly weak. We're kind of on the defensive. The lighter weight stocker cattle have been, the calves really have been quite weak here the last 2 or 3 weeks in the post-Labor Day period. I think some of that's going to come back. We're probably going to see some stocker demand here as we go forward in the fall. That ought to help stabilize those markets. And then, of course, by October, we'll be running into large seasonal supplies of feeder cattle.
It's pretty much fall right now, but it doesn't really feel like it. It's still pretty hot. So what's the situation with what are cattle on wheat producers looking at for just wheat in general?
Well, I've been traveling a little bit in the central part of the state, and from the standpoint of wheat pasture conditions, getting wheat pasture established, it looks pretty good. There's a lot of wheat that's already planted or being planted. There's a lot of ground that's getting ready for planting right away. A lot of anhydrous ammonia being applied in parts of the state. So I think the conditions are there. And again, as soon as that wheat gets planted and looks like it's coming up, then those guys are going to be looking for stocker cattle. So I think we'll see some more interest in those lighter weight calves as we get in here to the next 3 weeks or a month.
All right, thanks, Derrell. Derrell Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.